Good morning. I'm outside here in the gazebo between the two main buildings at First United Methodist here in Hamlet. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. Have a good cup of coffee with you. I'm out here today because tonight we will be doing our Christmas Eve worship service. You might call it Christmas Eve worship. The reason being that tomorrow the weather looks to be, well, absolutely frightful, as the old song goes. So it's much better we'll gather tonight outdoors here, where we can be outside and really should have a great evening of worship. Before you get too upset about how we're messing up Christmas, there's a dirty little secret, and it's this, that no one actually knows the date on which Jesus was born. That is something that is lost to history. And no one knows exactly when he was born. And the Gospel of Luke records that the shepherds were keeping watch over their flocks by night, and typically that was a spring activity. Typically shepherds watch their flocks out in the fields at night in the spring, but that's pretty thin to go on in terms of trying to date Christmas, and there are all sorts of ideas floating around for when in the calendar Jesus would have been born. And in fact, Christmas was not a big deal in the very earliest church. It simply wasn't a big deal. From very early on, celebrating Christ's crucifixion and resurrection was very important, but in the first couple of hundred years, Christmas was not. It was really about 300 or so AD that Christians began celebrating Christmas and making it something. So if we really don't know when Jesus was born, and they began really celebrating Christmas as a worship opportunity around 300 AD, why now in December? Well, there are two different ideas on this. And one that is commonly talked about is this. Today, December 23rd, would mark the end of the ancient festival known as Saturnalia, which was a very popular pagan festival in the Roman Empire. And that centered around the winter solstice, which was just a couple of days ago, and it was just a time for merrymaking, drunken orgies, presents, and several day-long party. There's one theory that Christians began celebrating the birth of Christ on Saturnalia, or about the same time, to, in essence, co-opt it. Everybody's having a party. We can have a party, but just for a different reason. That is one theory. Something else which I just read just yesterday in a pretty reputable source gave a different take on it. And it's this, that there was from pretty early in the church, a theory that that the annunciation of his birth and his crucifixion were on the same date. In fact, St. Augustine, one of the greatest of the early church fathers, recorded this, that Jesus, the Annunciation to Mary and his conception was the 14th of Nisan in the Hebrew calendar. In other words, March 25th. And that was also the same date on which he was crucified. And if you count forward 9 months from there, you get to December 25th. So there's also the theory that if you work from that tradition, that the Annunciation to Mary, the conception, was, say, March 25th or thereabouts. If you go forward 9 months in there, you get to December 25th. So, when was he born exactly? We don't know. We don't know, and that date is lost to history. But what we do know is this, that there is great cause to gather and worship and celebrate the birth of the Messiah, the birth of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And so we will gather tonight outside to worship the birth of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, so we can be outside and spaced out and have a great time of worship together, and do it safely. So tonight, we will celebrate the birth of Christ, and we will hear the ancient words of Matthew. And the birth of Jesus Christ took place on this wise: when as Mary, his mother, being espoused to Joseph, before they came together, was found to be with child of the Holy Ghost, Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privily. But while he thought in these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife. That which is conceived in her is of the Holy Ghost. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Now this was done to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, meaning God with us. Then Joseph, being awakened from sleep, did as the angel had bidden him, and took unto him Mary his wife. And he knew her not till she had given birth to her firstborn son, and called his name Jesus. And called his name Jesus, for he shall take away his people's sins. And that is some really good news. I hope that the rest of your Wednesday is great, and that I will see you tonight in worship.